As we get started with this whole thing regarding AI, let's just get straight into it. And before we get started, as I said, let's first have a look at your credentials. You know, you've had a prolific history in music. Give us a brief rundown of your history in music and what has brought you to this point of us having this discussion this evening.
Oh boy, well that's a long question. I'll be as brief as I can. So look, I started in the days of analog. I was producing music when I was a teenager, which was many, many years ago, when cassettes were still being manufactured. And I had a very successful run of music recordings in the 90s. I sold several million albums. I released an album called The Music of the Grand Canyon, which was a national park-inspired record. I was doing nature-inspired music, instrumental world music, because I was trained classically at the Royal Academy of Music on flute, of all instruments. And so when I became a professional recording artist, I chose world and instrumental-inspired styles of music, real acoustic stuff, you know. So I had a very successful early career. And through the 90s, 93 to about 97 to 2000, I sold millions of records. I mean, the equivalent of billions and billions of streams today. But those were, you know, subject to a certain place and time in the music industry. And what I experienced was the conversion of analog to digital, from the decline of CD sales to streaming. And I owned a label in 2001 after all of this initial success, where I was manufacturing CDs and representing several hundred artists in the music business in my chosen genre, which was instrumental and world-inspired styles of music. We were a front runner in that genre. And unfortunately, we couldn't survive the transition from digital to streaming. So we closed the doors on that label, and I finally got to do something I always wanted to do, and that was electronic music. I remember standing on the dance floor in 2001, listening to Paul Oakenfold's Southern Sun, going, "Why am I not doing this? Why am I not producing and doing this kind of music?"
Yeah.
And it took me a while to sort of change gears, because anytime I want to get involved in a new genre, I'm going to go study it. I'm not going to jump in and pretend I'm already good at it. I was coming from acoustic instrumental music. And so when I got into electronic, we started a label in 2017 called Blue Dot. And now we're an emerging label within electronic. And it's because of my relationships I've built. I became known as a writer for a lot of trance artists. I wrote Armin van Buuren's Tune of the Year in 2021 for all time. I've written with Avira, with Giuseppe Ottaviani, Richard Durand, Protoculture, the list, Andrew Rayel. I've worked with vocalists such as Sam Martin. And the list just goes on and on. Alina Renee is one of my big go-tos. And so we now have a label that has multiple brands on Blue Dot. We have a chill side, we have a trance side, we have a down-tempo side, and we're now working with Alex Morph and Jess and Richard Durand and a ton of fantastic artists within electronic. But the thing that I offer that very few producers or musicians can offer is 33 years of being in this damn business and watching what happens when new technologies come about. And that's why we're here tonight.
Nick, in your personal experience, right, where do you draw the line in the sand with AI? Everyone has to have a line. So where is yours in particular? Do you think AI parts of any kind are acceptable in music? And if not, why not?
Yeah, that's a great question. As it currently stands, I don't believe in AI parts in music, because AI music, partial or not, shares the same royalty pool as human created music, and that's not acceptable to me. So my line is drawn in the sand right now, and this is what I make very clear, that if you cannot make AI assist or computer assist tracks or ideas attributable to a real human performer, then you've gone over the line. The bottom line is this: it's the laws surrounding AI music right now. and how AI is siphoning from the human artist pool, the human royalty pool. And that is what a lot of people don't understand and know. And if you really knew the dirty truth behind all of that, that's where we all do a complete U-turn and say, whoa, 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 hold on a second.
I love the way you're answering that. Why are AI assist tools that have been around for years, why are those acceptable? But using AI parts created and performed by AI engines, why is that seen as crossing the line by many trained producers and musicians such as you?
Well, AI assist tools are usually attributable to humans. Like, for example, MIDI packs, MIDI sample packs are attributable to human creators. And don't get me wrong, this is messy. This is not an easy subject to dissect and create lines in the sand on. So you do have to draw your own line. It may not suit another person or another producer, but we're talking about what my line is, and I have to draw that as a record label and as an artist. And when you look at computer technology, computer assist and AI assist, it goes back to the late 80s. I was using the first samplers in 1992, the Ensoniq EPS sampler, a 13-bit sampler. I was using computer and AI assist going back decades. The difference between what's happening now and what happened then is the amount of what's called AI slop that's being uploaded to the stores each day that is sharing in our royalties as real human creators. It's an unacceptable position that we're finding the industry in that is quickly spiraling out of control.
So speaking of uploads, right, how many uploads a day are there now that is 100% AI generated music or even tracks using partial AI parts? How are these tracks allowed to get onto the music stores, and what are the laws and regulations around it all? Who is getting paid for all of this AI music, and where is the money actually going?
Yeah, oh boy. I mean, look, in January of 2025, we had about 10,000 uploads a day of AI music. We saw, if anyone was paying attention, we saw a massive change in AI technology with regards to music. We were hearing vocals coming out of the AI music sector that were just astonishing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against AI music. It just needs its own lane. So now we have 60,000 uploads a day, right now, of AI.
Wow, 60,000 a day. Holy moly.
Yeah, but 70 to 80% of it is what's called AI slop. It is basically low grade, not acceptable, turned down by the stores, basically deleted by the stores, not distributable by the stores. But that is what is being attempted to be uploaded each day, is 70,000 tracks. And we are just in the infant stages of AI music development.
Because that's a lot, man. That's a lot. Who's getting paid for it, and where's all this money going to?
Yeah, well, so look, here's the deal. So you've got to understand the laws surrounding AI music, the intellectual property rights and the master rights. Who do they belong to? How can they be attributable to a real artist? And what is public domain? Let me explain it. I'll go over it real quick. So basically what happens is if you have a 100% AI generated track, it doesn't belong to a human being. It belongs to an AI engine. We're talking about the intellectual property, which is the writing, the composition, as well as the master output, all the parts that are being performed. That is 100% AI. That is attributable to what's called public domain, and you can't assign it to a real human being on the stores. Now, you can lie about it. And this is... Now, this is where it gets dicey. So this is where we find ourselves in the wild, wild west. 100% AI music is pretty easy to be fingerprinted and flagged. And the stores pretty much consider that what's called AI slop. It's usually stuff that they won't generate a royalty on. They won't pay that royalty. But there are tracks that are 100% AI that do slip by the screening and get attributed to a real human artist profile. And as soon as that happens, then you've got what's called the dilution of the human royalty pool. And it's not so much in this 100% AI slop than it is in this law surrounding partial AI parts. And this is where the whole thing becomes a matter of the wild, wild west. We're currently dealing with copyright law that needs to be reevaluated and rewritten, because the current copyright law allows for partial AI parts to be copywritten as long as they're in conjunction with significant human-created parts.
Okay.
Now, stay with me.
Okay.
This is where it gets a little bit hard to understand. But this is all a part of the industry trying to find itself. And the copyright law needs to be updated, because you have big artists right now, as well as big labels, creating AI vocals on these sites such as Sunos and Udio and so forth, and then combining those AI vocals with their own parts, registering them with the performing rights organizations, and then uploading them through distribution to their profiles as an artist. We're seeing this every day by big artists and by big labels. The problem with all of that is that those parts are crossing the line with regards to intellectual property rights, who those rights are attributable to. And there's so much music being generated at such lightning speed because of all of this. All of that is diluting the amount of royalties being paid to human performers. And let me tell you why. Let's use an analogy for a second. The entire streaming industry is what's called a pro rata share of royalties. Currently, in the music industry, we have about 100 million tracks. Let's use Spotify as an example, right? We have about 750 million subscribers on Spotify. And Spotify has about 100 million tracks. Each one of those subscribers pay an average of about $11.99 per month. This is the pro rata system that allows each stream to be worth approximately 0.004 cents per stream. It's called the pro rata share, or the pooled royalty share. This is why AI parts, in partial or in whole, are absolutely decimating this royalty structure. Let's take, for example, you're a server, hypothetically, and you go into work one night and you have 4 other servers working with you that night. Well, you go out on the floor and you work your butt off. The other 4 servers sit around and do absolutely nothing. And at the end of the night, you pool all your tips. They get, you get 1/5 of the total share of all the work you did. Yeah. That's exactly what AI is doing to the human artist royalty pool. It's unacceptable.
In terms of money, okay, we had a chat early on during the week when we were setting it up. How much money are we looking at real artists, vocalists, producers, real musicians that have spent years creating and honing their craft and skill? How much are they set to lose according to some of the calculations that you've worked on?
Well, so look, I mean, there is controversial accounting projections. So if you were to speak to one of the greats in the music industry, Lucian Grange from Universal Music Group, who quite honestly is brilliant, he's a genius. I would listen to all of his articles. He's rubbing shoulders with AI because he wants to control the output. He wants it to have its own lane, which means it has its own subscribership, it has its own royalty pool. He's got the right thinking and he's doing the right thing. But if we continue down this path where AI music, in partial or in whole, does not have its own royalty pool and its own lane, by 2028, we could see $4 billion per year going towards partial AI parts and AI creators, or a 24% drop in royalties to human creators. I mean, if you feel you're a human creator right now and you're getting enough from Spotify, well, get ready. You're going to get a hell of a lot less.
Wow. To put it into context, okay, so Valerie, you've got no production skills whatsoever. None. You've never actually done any production work whatsoever.
Nothing whatsoever. So I decided to work on something, right? So I went into ChatGPT.
Yes.
And I put in a prompt and I said I wanted to create a trance track about the changing world and how the separate reality from fantasy and what to keep what's real
yes.
in regards to our music and to word it in a trance track.
Yes.
Then I took those words, and I'm going to post those words that ChatGPT came up with. I put that into Suno, and with the free version,
Yes.
I created a trance track. Look, it's not 100% because it was created with a free version, but with the paid version, you can actually still go and remove the stems, play with the stems, take the vocal out,
Basically edit the track and make it what you
manipulate
want.
it. So I'm not a producer at all. Are you gonna play the track?
Yeah. How long did it take you in total
It took
from
me
start to finish? How long did it
From
take you to create?
ChatGPT to getting the track out of Suno, less than 5 minutes.
The world keeps changing faces. Truth is hard to find. Neon lights and empty spaces. Blur the heart and mind. Tell me what is real when the lights all fade away through the noise we feel. There's a fire that when the world is shifting fast and fantasy feels real, hold on to the light inside. Keep what's real through the chaos and the glow, through illusions designed. We will guard the truth we know, you and I. When the world is shifting fast and fantasy feels real, hold on to the light inside. Keep what's real through the chaos and the glow, through illusions designed. We will guard the truth we know, you and I.
Less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes to create that.
Yep.
To create that piece of music. Nick, what did you think of that piece of music right there?
Yeah, look, it's like any other piece of AI music you listen to and you go, holy shit, I got a lot to be worried about. Look, we're not here to discuss how great AI is or isn't. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
In 3 to 5 years, super intelligent AI will mimic all the nuances of live instrumentation. It will mimic the drift in a vocal. The one thing you hear with AI vocals right now is there's no drift.
Yeah.
And if you're a vocal producer, you know what I'm talking about. So there's always a drift in a vocal when it comes to intonation and perfect pitch and all those things. You also see a drift, and correcting drift to an infinitesimal amount is something we all try to do to make our vocals competitive. But in AI, it just simply doesn't exist. It's like, but in super intelligent AI will have all of those nuances built in. And so but this conversation is not about hating AI. It's about embracing AI and making sure it has its own lane, because it learned mostly from the music we've already created, and illegally, I might add. Sonos was sued by Warner, by all the majors and by the Independent Music Coalition. It's already settled with Warner that it has to now license music moving forward. But, you know, this whole idea that AI is not great is not what we're here to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody mentioned, using Suno. I just quickly want to go to that mention there in the channel. Using Suno Pro Plan, you can commercially use the tracks, but you don't get the copyright. And if and when an artist claims a lawsuit for having their vocal or composition ripped, Suno revert back to their liability, which means that it puts the responsibility and liability on the artist. I know you mentioned something like that in our discussion about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the wild, wild west. I just love that. Here's the thing. So people are lying, and there's going to be. Here's the problems we foresee in the AI music community. Those who are choosing AI music and to upload these significant parts in conjunction with their own to the stores is the disclosure. Because AI is not being labeled right now.
Yeah.
Apple Music just released, iTunes just released a policy by which labels and distributors can choose to add metadata saying that these are AI parts, but is voluntary. Who cares about a voluntary ask? It needs to be mandatory at the store level. So we haven't arrived there yet. And because of that, you get these artists, big and small, uploading significant AI parts and then lying about who wrote the lyric and who wrote the music, the composition, the intellectual property. And this is happening every day in substantial quantities with massive artists. And you have to ask yourself the question, how is it that big artists are so poorly informed? Because everyone in the music industry throughout my 33-year career has always been on a need-to-know basis. They're like horses with blinders until they figure it out. Oh shit! If I continue doing that, I'm going to get really in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And a part of this whole issue with AI disclosure is the terrible lying that's happening at the PRO level, the Performing Rights Organization level. And I've seen it. I can't mention the tracks and I can't mention the artists. We're not here to call people out.
Exactly.
But, yeah, but do I agree with what they're doing? I think they're being incredibly foolish. I think they're sacrificing their integrity, their artistic integrity. And I also think that they're subjecting themselves to criminal fraud.
When you mention criminal fraud, okay, I think expand on that a little bit, because we had a chat about that earlier this afternoon, and you actually gave me some ideas and some information, and I thought to myself, whoa, you know what? Some of these big labels and these big artists are really, really opening themselves up and making themselves totally vulnerable if it had to go down that road.
Yeah, so look, when you're in the wild, wild west, you just shoot at everything, right? And you're just hoping you'll hit something. And this is sort of where we're at, and we do it with these blinders on, and we don't do it with much care, except for if you're really well versed on the music industry and you have a lot of artistic integrity, you tend to ask these questions. But if maybe you're not a well-studied musician, and I'm going to make a comment right now that may be slightly controversial, but in my history. Let's say, for example, you were afforded a really good musical education. Let's say Berklee School of Music or the Royal Academy of Music. There's a really good chance you're going to leave that organization not thinking that AI will be a good substitute for your creativity.
Yes.
Because you're musically educated. You don't feel that I am going to substitute all of my training and my knowing of music and the satisfaction that I get of creating my own stuff to think AI would be a good substitute. So the people, the offenders that are really just going in and having AI create their top line melodies and their lyrics putting those parts on the stores in conjunction with their own parts and then lying about that intellectual property is potentially, depending on who files a claim in the future when things start to settle, could be a criminal fraud issue. And the reason why is because there's money happening. What you're doing is you're lying and deceiving a customer, which is the end user. And this is where we're finding ourselves. We're finding people lying for personal gain, for aggrandizing their artistry when they didn't participate in it.
Yeah.
And when you say that you are an author of something or you are a true writer of something, and let me tell you, I know some big artists right now that are putting lyric prompts into GPT, writing lyrics, and then sending those lyrics into Suno, having Suno create the lead line, the top line melody with the vocal part, the master part, and then claiming credit to it all.
So they're lying. They're basically lying to their audience, the people that buy the tracks and everything. They're claiming that that's their artistry, and they're blatantly lying to that audience.
Yeah, or what they're doing is they're misunderstanding the legal ramifications of what potentially could happen down the road. Number one is copyright law. If you basically say, well, I wrote something you didn't, well, that's a triple threat issue for you somewhere down the road if somebody wants to come at you.
Yeah.
Triple threat means that you are any fine is ×3 plus damages. And at the end of the day, you've got to understand that if you put your credits on metadata saying you wrote something and you tell the performing rights organizations the same thing, and then the master property goes up and then you profit from that, and it's all out there in the marketplace and people are streaming it and downloading it, and the whole time you're lying, there is a potential of fraud. And so this is where we find ourselves, but people are not connecting these dots. They're saying to themselves, well, because Suno's allowing me to do it, and I can't claim it. They're saying me I can't claim it because I don't own the intellectual property. That they're doing it anyway because they don't understand the legal ramifications of that. And no one's really policing this to the degree where it needs to be policed.
Man, have you got any questions that have come through, Val? Hold on a second. Yes.
Helps if my mic is on. So Lee asked, as a DJ, if I know a track is AR or contains AR, should I support it or not?
That's the question. Did you hear that question there, Nick?
Yeah, I did. I wouldn't. I mean, where's your sense of community and loyalty? I mean, you have to, the only way look, if the time when you start supporting an industry is when it doesn't take from yours.
Yeah.
So right now, AI is siphoning royalties from our existing human royalty pool. I don't care if you play it in the set in the clubs or if you're streaming it or what have you. All the while, you allow people to do what they're doing with AI partial parts and full parts and 100% public domain, 100% AI music, you're allowing them a way forward to have a voice while they're siphoning from you. We as a music community must make a stand until there is a clear lane for AI parts, AI music, proper labeling, separate royalty pool, full disclosure, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. And again, I just want to reiterate to somebody that's coming to the channel as well. We've actually got Craig here from Lost Communications joining us tonight. Another record label, of course, Soul is here. And we're chatting to Nicholas from Blue Dot this evening with regards to the whole AI thing. Valerie, you said you've got another question that came through.
Should artists be compensated when AR models are trained on their recordings?
Nice question.
Of course. I mean, it's all BS. So let me tell you what happens in the music industry. So when we went from Napster starting a free MP3 download and everyone was streaming music and went from CDs to streaming, Spotify saw a market potential to start something in 2008. They did it on the backs of outdated copyright law. Copyright law had only been updated once in 100 years, and that was 1976 in the first attempt. The second attempt was the Modernization Music Act in 2018. And why did Spotify even start? because they knew that they could stand on the backs of artists without paying them. Don't ever think that any of this new technology is in an artist's favor. They are only starting something because there's a hole in the market. There's a way to take advantage of an existing system. Spotify was sued. These lawsuits go to court and they get settled. And out of these settlements becomes new legislation. The Modernization Music Act 2018 was a part of this settlement that set forth a separate mechanical rate, which is the publishing side of a sound recording that it generates, payable to the Mechanical Rights Collective, which is an organization they set up. So my point is this. Should they become? Remind me of the original question, because I totally spun myself into a circle on that one.
Should artists be compensated when AI models are trained on their recordings?
Yeah, so look, right, thank you very much for that. You can tell I'm very passionate about this subject. So part of this new technology that is fleecing and took advantage is they use copyright law that was outdated. They use what's called fair use. They said we can steal your music without license, without compensation, by using what's called fair use. Well, it's absolute BS. Fair use was never put into copyright law to protect AI. It was always there to protect human interest. So no, every single AI platform, AI technology needs a license if it plans to use any kind of media for profit. That is the law. This is not just about AI. If you are a business and you plan to use somebody's media, music, film, TV, and then you plan to profit from that use, you need a license and you need to compensate.
Something happened over the weekend, and I actually want to just throw it out here this evening. So there's this producer, right? And the producer got contacted by somebody, because we know that a lot of producers use vocal packs, they use sample packs and so on. And as we've discussed before, there's nothing wrong with using vocal packs, okay? Because there's a lot of people that use it. They use them for inspiration and so on. And
they've paid the vocalist to use their vocals.
Yeah, exactly. So there's been a transaction, there's been an agreement and everything between the producer that's using that vocal pack. But what happened over the last couple of months is a specific producer got contacted by somebody who said, listen, I've got this great vocal for you. I am X, Y, and Z. And the producer said, wow, this sounds really, really great. Didn't know that it was AI. Got sent the vocal, paid for the vocal, produced the track, put it together, worked on it and everything, and only afterwards realized that it was an AI vocal, and literally went out on a limb and said, you know what, this I don't want to put literally to my name in terms of the vocal, because I never created that vocal, and made it available as a free download. Does a producer like that gets scammed into a situation like that, do they have some sort of recourse that they can go on?
Yeah, so in the course of our business, anytime we work with a vocalist, we make sure that we are contracted with that vocalist and ask very specific questions before engaging with them. That's because of the climate we find ourselves in. The one thing we always recommend to all of the producers we work with under Blue Dot is don't ever work with a vocalist without having an agreement up front. And that is if there's any part of the project that is deemed illegitimate, or the parts cannot be used because they were falsified. This is not even prevalent to AI. It could be that the vocal was not performed by the actual vocalist and was taken or stolen from somebody else, for example. So we have all these clauses in our agreement that basically says, what you say is true, and if it's not, we can come and get you. But, like anything, you end up in a court. But, it just depends on your reputation. If you're tough as nails, and you need to be in this industry, if you walk with it, if you step on me, I'll see the inside of a court with you. No one's going to mess with you. Yeah. And we're like that at Blue Dot. We're a loving family over here. But more, if you cross us, watch out.
Yeah, we've seen something. Sorry, Val. Before we get to that next question, we've seen something that's happened in recent time now, where a vocalist has actually done a track with a producer. The producer then didn't like the nuances of the voice, went and processed it through AI, dropped it in, and now, of course, there's claims that the producer and the vocalist have done this track legitimately. But in terms of how the track has been put together, yes, there is the human element from both of them. Yet the vocals have still been processed by AI. And we're seeing some producers saying, well, you know what, I can't sing that well. So what I do is I sing like I would sing in the shower. Then I process it through something like Suno, and voila, I've got a track. What are the implications in that? That is technically still AI flagged, or should be AI flagged.
Yeah, it's still an AI part. And look, at the end of the day, where is your line in the sand? Where is your artistic integrity?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to ask yourself, when it's all said and done, you can create a million excuses. And as soon as somebody, for example, comes at us saying, but what if, and if I did this, and if I wanted to go there, the chances of them using AI parts because they're looking for an excuse always is high. When we work with artists that are highly trained and highly motivated on the notion that they get great satisfaction from doing their own work, we know that the chances of them using AI parts are slim to none. Because it's not about how great it can be, it's about I did it by myself.
I know we did get a lot of questions earlier, where people were asking, as a producer, I don't have the money to pay a huge vocalist or a vocalist for their vocals.
Yeah.
And I've been using Suno or AI to create a vocal track because I want to do a vocal track. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, here's the thing. There's a broken relationship between producers and top liners, and it's not lost on us. And I've said we have several top liners that we represent exclusively under Blue Dot. We have an up-and-comer, Brittany Egbert, who's brilliant. She's not an up-and-comer anymore. She's doing wonderfully well. She's got collabs with Richard Drand and Alex Morth and York and all kinds of stuff. She's doing wonderful. And Ashley Walbridge, who's a good pal. And so, you know, when you look at the relationship between producers and top liners, it's broken. And the reason why is you've got this history of top liners that have charged excessive amounts of money up front for their parts. Now, sometimes that's the label's responsibility, but in most cases, especially if you're not signed, it's the producer's responsibility. But where is the spirit of collaboration in that? And this is what I always tell our top liners on Blue Dot. Don't be so quick to charge so much money up front, especially when the option is an AI part.
Yeah.
So be quicker to collaborate. Of all the producers we work with, we know that most people on single tracks are not getting advances in today's climate, unless they're a really big artist and they've asked for one. So when a top liner comes along and says, well, I want 1,500, pounds to do that top liner, and the producer takes nothing, and I also want to collab in an equal royalty, that's not the spirit of collaboration.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
So what we're telling vocalists now is, look, realize that everyone has created a system that is a bit broken, and that is you're charging way too much in a climate that can't be afforded.
Yeah.
So if you really want to collab with the producer, say you'll do an equal royalty split, say you'll do equal credit, rather than a feature, you'll do a collab. And see if you can get and see if the producer can get that vocal for much less or nothing in the spirit of collaboration. And this is part of the broken relationship that plays into the AI dilemma.
Yeah, true. Nick, I've got to ask you a question. As a record label owner, how many AI tracks get submitted to you as part of the demos? How many get submitted to you? I know recently you also made a very strong statement on social media and so on with regards to you will not be accepting any tracks that are AI generated and so on. But how many, as a record label, before you actually did that, how many demos and so on did you get that was AI created?
Yep. So we're at Wednesday and I've already received 5 this week.
Wow.
And I mean, you've put it out on socials. You've said 100% human, 0% AI, and they're still trying to pass their tracks on to you.
And what sort of, sorry to stop you there, what sort of feedback do you get when you tell somebody like that, hey, listen, mate, sorry, we're not going to sign this. It's a really good track, like the elements and the music part of it, but the vocal is AI. What sort of responses are you getting from up-and-coming producers?
Well, first off is how do I find out it's AI, right?
Yeah.
So number one is I can tell to a certain degree, But I asked a series of questions. It comes through A&R. It comes through Graham at A&R. I never really respond to these things up front unless it comes to my desk. But Graham always asks these questions. And he says the following. Who's the vocalist? Period. Where did you license the vocal from? And do you have exclusive or non-exclusive rights to the vocal? And tell me about your track record as a producer. Where do you come from? Those three questions usually either force them to fess up it's an AI vocal part because they run scared, or they say they just continue to pretend that it's not. But we can usually flag at that point as being AI because it sounds like AI. This is where we enter into that really difficult place of like, oh boy, how do we know what AI is going to sound like in the future, right?
Yeah.
But in most instances, when these people come back and say, and in every instance, we've not received an artist coming back and not being dishonest. They say, well, it is AI. I went to Suno and I got a vocal, but I have the license right for it. And so we actually have a whole paragraph copied ready, just copy and paste. And what we do is we're gentle, but we educate them on why this hurts the music industry.
So
we don't say, we don't say AI is not great. We say every AI part, in part or in whole, the amount of AI that's being generated at such a furious pace is diluting the human artist royalty pool. And do you even know that? They have no idea.
So Ren Fay is here with us in the chat, as well as Claire Willis, a really, really amazing vocalist. And I want to ask you this question, Nick. Let's say, for instance, a producer approaches Ren and says to her, listen, I've got this track. I'm going to send you the track. Can you work on something for me, a top line? And Ren actually sits down and she pens the top line and she actually sends a demo back. And the producer thereafter then says, well, you know what? It's not quite working for me. Thank you so much for trying. And then obviously, things quiet down. Yet, let's say 6 weeks later, the track gets released with a different AI vocal, but with the same lyrics. Does somebody like Ren, and Ren, good evening, welcome to the chat. I'm just using you as an example. Does somebody like Ren Fay have a legal standing in terms of that she had written for that producer who's now taken her intellectual property that she's written and actually gone and processed it through AI?
Yes, this is a brilliant question because this gets a little complex. So technically, you're asking AI to cover a tune. So in the world of covers, in America, if you're a company in America and you want to cover a tune and it's never been commercially released. So I'm assuming Ren's track had never been commercially released. Let's set the stage there. Had it been commercially released prior?
No.
Okay, so that's called a first license of use. As soon as you release an intellectual property track, if you wrote the top line and the lyric, I don't care who sang it. I don't care if the AI engine sang it or the artist sang it. If it hasn't been released commercially, it doesn't have what's called a first license of release. That means anyone who wants to cover it, whether it's the AI engine, the producer using the AI engine, has to go to the intellectual property rights holder, in this case Ren, to get her permission. Okay? In the United States, if a track has been released commercially before, there's something called a compulsory license, which means you don't have to get permission. You put it out as long as you pay the source, the mechanical, all the paperwork is done properly, etc. If you're a European company and you wanted to put out a cover track and it had a first license already, then you still have to go back to the original publisher or the intellectual property holder, in this case, Ren. So in this case here, he is infringing upon our copyright. And if that happened to us and the producer had it on the stores, we would send in a request to Spotify and the stores and to their distributors. We would have it mandatorily taken down. We would ask for a cease and desist. If that didn't happen, we would haul their butt into court.
I love that. Have you got a question that's come through, Val?
What if it's the other way around? So a producer gets called in by another producer to do a collab. There's parts of the track that has been done through AI, but they don't know. Let's say like a pianist is called in to do a part of a track, or a saxophonist, or somebody doing the flute, and their name is going onto that track, and they didn't know up front that there were AI parts that were put in that track. What is their
legal ramifications?
Is it the same as what you mentioned now with the vocals?
So no, in collaboration. So what happens there? So you're saying the producer has created an AI part that he's bringing to the table as part of his stems. Now, if those AI parts existed previously and the collaborator, the producer, didn't know that they were AI parts, this is why agreements matter. So if you are, especially nowadays, if you are going to work with somebody and you are going to put out a track commercially, it's always best to have some type of agreement with what's called warranties and representations. And what that means is your partner warranties and represents that every part of the recording and the process of the recording and the generations of tracks and where they came from are true and accurate on how they were disclosed. If you have those kinds of agreements, then you have recourse. But if you don't, you have nothing. But the cover issue with Ren is a separate issue, because if a producer was bringing in previously generated AI parts and simply not disclosing those parts to his new collaborator, the new collaborator didn't write those parts. They were pre-existing. He doesn't have an intellectual property claim on those parts. So you're into now this gray area. And this is where it gets dicey in the business. This is why you really need to know who you're working with today more than ever.
Val, let's just quickly see. But what if it's an original that the producer then skips the original vocalist and uses AI? Will be a lot. He said, she said. So, it can end up being an expensive process. And I understand where Zunshine is actually coming from with that question.
Yeah, so basically you start a collaboration with somebody and you're a vocalist, and then the producer decides to move on and then go use AI.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I mean, look, that's right anyone has. Unfortunately, the AI thing is just a dirty aspect of it all. You sometimes you've got to put the AI face on a human face and say, do I have to treat this differently? So this producer, for example, if he decided that he just wanted to go find another collaborator, he has a right unless you have an agreement.
Yeah, that's true.
But how does AI play a role in the industry? Well, we're discussing that, and we're discussing the negative effects of that. So, we don't like AI in the way it currently exists, but we love it for what it's capable of.
For the average man in the street, there was a question that came through earlier on. Are there platforms or something in place where a person can go and take a track, for instance, and play it, and will it actually flag whether the track is AI generated in whole or whether there's AI parts? Are there actually platforms like that available at this moment in time?
Oh, this is the best question ever, because it really takes us to the next part of the discussion. So Udio just settled with Universal Music Group 2 weeks ago. Udio have a platform where they're talking about remixing licensed tracks, AI remixes of parts, and also complete generated parts and songs, and putting those on their platform exclusively for a subscriber base that is separate from the existing royalty pool. So it's a standalone platform. It basically caters to subscribers that have subscribed knowing it's 100% AI or AI generated parts, and not siphoning from the human artist royalty pool, but standing alone. That is the only checks and balances we really have for knowing that AI is in its own lane. As sad as that is, because right now, Lucian Grange from Universal Music Group has a wonderful approach to cozying up to AI technology, embracing it only for one specific reason: to control the output. So he can fingerprint all AI output.
You know,
As soon as we have somebody from the largest music group in the world saying, look, we're going to settle with you rather than take you all the way through court, because we need to start having a responsible AI output, this is where we see the proper labeling of AI. Right now, we're dealing with irresponsible people that have fleeced the music community. So when I see musicians using AI parts from these companies that started on our backs and have no loyalty to us, I shake my head and I say, you've no clue what you're doing.
have you got any questions that have come through there on your side, Val?
This wasn't really a question, but it says the other issue is using AI to create lyrics. How do you know that AI hasn't just ripped it from another song?
Yeah, you can. I've heard of duplicates all the time. I mean, AI duplicates, AI output duplicates. I've heard people putting in prompts on AI engines and having it spit out the same top line. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think there are any assurances there. So if you're looking for originality from the AI engine, I mean, I wouldn't exactly look there.
And then, is it the label's responsibility to tag tracks containing AI, or should it be the label simply saying, we will not release this?
Yeah, so here's the deal. The messaging is really important right now because we're up against a lack of loyalty to the human royalty pool. And we have labels on a large level and artists on a large level that are willing to cheat the human artist royalty pool by putting out these parts without a consideration for their community. With that said, we have to be responsible in our own messaging. So we as Blue Dot have a label now on all of our covers that says 100% human, 0% AI. We also put that in our metadata because we can. Apple now have a metadata section they've just released that allows labels and distributors to add AI-generated content to their metadata. But quite honestly, it is not mandated anywhere right now. It's up to the messaging of the label and the artist. And this is where artistic integrity matters right now. Who's on the side of the human field and who's on the side of the AI field?
And it's like we've said before, you know, we're cutting through the BS tonight. You know, we're not getting all emotional and everything because it is quite an emotional and hot topic. But we're bringing the facts, okay? We're not saying that AI is wrong and that AI doesn't have a place. We're saying AI needs to stay in its own lane so that artists like Ren Faye and Nicholas Gunn and Craig and Claire Willis and the host of other incredible people that we've worked with over the last couple of years and a host of other people that we haven't worked with yet, so that they can continue doing what they're doing and, of course, get the royalties and get the earnings from that. And that's why there should be a clear separation. Yeah, there should be a clear separation in terms of that. Now, Nick, what does the future of AI look like? Is real music going to die, or do real musicians and artists still have a chance with AI the way it's going at the moment?
No, I'm not worried at all about my creativity, my ability to reach my audience and my fan base and future fan bases. And this is why. When you do a survey of what young people want, we're talking on the consumer level. You got to remember who's using AI. It's not consumers of music. It is musicians wanting to cheat and aggrandize their art without, at a quicker and easier pace.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you look at what consumers want, I was in a meeting in London last week with one of our partners, one of the largest media companies for film and TV in the world. And we are aligned on our AI messaging. And the one guy in the office looked at me and goes, we just did a whole survey on what 13 to 30 wants in music. And you know what the comment was? We want to touch the grass again. Because every day they're being lied to. You go on social media, you feel like everything is a lie. You go listen to music. You don't know if it's a real vocalist. It's not that the consumer doesn't want this. It's an overwhelming 83% of consumers don't want AI. It's the musicians and the producers that want the AI, that want to cheat the system. It's not the consumer. So you have to look at what this looks like in the future. I recommend to every single artist, put yourself in front of the camera. I know it's a tough one, but the more you can show your authenticity, pick up an instrument, play it, show your process, show how you created something, talk about what the song meant to you. Why did you write those lyrics? When did you cry for the first time when you wrote that song? Show yourself recording it in the studio. All of these things matter. And I think that is what it's about in the future. And also, when we talk about what's going to succeed in the music industry, AI will have its own lane because the majors are making sure of that. It's what happens right now to the artists that are sort of not understanding. They're going to have a bad rap if they don't sort it out for themselves soon.
And you
can't jump.
Yeah, carry on.
Go ahead. You can't jump into this, I'm going to use AI vocals and parts without disclosure, and then also lie on metadata saying I wrote the part without it eventually catching up to you. Because the consumer, whether you think likes it or not, don't actually like it. They don't like the AI parts getting in the way of their truth. People want truth again. This is the world we live in.
Yep, absolutely true. So Craig mentions, I wonder what would happen if a track gets into the top 10 in Beatport. You absolutely love the track, okay? Let me just go there. You absolutely love the track, and then you find out that the vocal on the track or the melody is AI generated. I mean, that means
and he says credibility will be lost on the artist.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, so it depends on what circles you run in. Trust me, I'm seeing plenty of big artists, and when I see them in public, I look at them directly in the eye and say, what the hell were you thinking? Are you stupid?
Oh, man.
The bottom line is how big are your balls? At the end of the day, you can't run scared from you wanting traction and support from people that are cheating the system. And it's not cheating the system. That's a strong word. They're not aware of the artistic integrity ramifications and potential legal implications of lying and using AI parts in the current system. Until it finds its own lane, by all means, then you can go be an AI artist. But in the meantime, do not take my royalties. Yeah. And if I see you in public, I'll make sure that I'll say that very loud so everyone can hear me.
So here's a question. So should producers that buy vocal packs then put the name of the vocalist who's on the vocal pack for transparency, or what is the royalty implications on that? Because, your thoughts.
I get where you're going from. Nick, can you answer that one for us?
So vocal packs are attributed to live performers. It's just what's called a non-exclusive license. Non-exclusive licenses belong to every VST and instrument you're using in the studio. Mm-hmm. So look, the bottom line is that AI assist tools and computer assist tools have always held a non-exclusive license with the end user, and that is that anyone can use that sound at any time on their recordings, and that includes vocal sample packs. But my line is did a real singer sing it? Look, if a singer wants to go have all of her parts available on Splice, and you join the Splice membership per month, and you can download any vocal and use it on your recordings, you have what's called a non-exclusive license to use that vocal part. Mm-hmm. But But you can sacrifice your own artistic integrity, and we see this all the time as a label. Sometimes we do accept tracks with sample pack vocals with a non-exclusive license that have been done before with other artists. Sometimes those tracks, when you put them into distribution, get flagged as what's called a duplicate because the vocals already existed on another track.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we're not willing to go down that path, because that part is still attributable to a human performer.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the music business needs to support itself on the artist level. So if vocalists are going and creating sample packs because they had a money exchange with Splice to do that non-exclusive license, then so be it. Just be prepared that other people are going to use it as well.
So Hein mentioned, and Hein, you missed this one. He said, when you write the lyrics and build the entire track, melodies, etc., and use something like Suno, yet disclose it's AI generated for the actual voice, then obviously it's going to get flagged in terms of AI. And basically then it puts it on that borderline. Am I right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. So you've created the lyric yourself, and you've created the top line melody yourself. So basically the intellectual property belongs to you.
Yeah.
But you want Suno to sing the part. Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. So personally, that crosses the line for me, because I want all of my intellectual property, personally, as a label, as an artist, to be attributable to real human performers until AI can have its own separate royalty pool. But all the while it's siphoning from my pool, it's not acceptable to me. And so the question then becomes, how will the rest of the industry look at you if you've written the intellectual property but then used an AI part? I mean, I would never do it. I wouldn't sleep at night. I didn't go to the Royal Academy of Music to ever think that that was a substitute for my creativity.
Yeah.
I would find a vocalist. If I wrote the part already, I've done so many tracks I've written lyrics and top lines for. I take the time to find a human being to slay the part.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not even a question for me. So, like, you got this younger producer set that seems to find this whole AI conversion an acceptable route, but it won't be for long.
Yeah.
It won't be when it finds its own lane, because when it finds its own lane, then you're either on that side of the fence or on this side of the fence.
Val, have you got any questions that have come through there on your side?
A lot of the questions that have come through already have been answered.
Yeah.
So I don't want to repeat too much, because we are uploading this entire conversation onto YouTube. So if you did miss any of the questions and answers, then you can always go and re-watch it at a later stage. So if you have any new questions, please put it into chat now.
Yeah, put it into the chat. Nick, while I've got you on the line, anything else that you want to add onto this discussion that we might not have touched on just yet?
Look, AI's learned from us. Remember that. It only exists because we gave it something. So go out and be original and be beautiful. When I listen to AI music, I hear how I've learned from it. And you know what I've learned? I learned when I listen to an AI vocal how it simplifies great ideas. And sometimes for me, that unlocks something in my brain that says, oh, I'm being too complex on my approach on this latest tune. I need to simplify. So I go back in and I do the work. But don't worry about AI in the long run. Worry about your partners and your collaborators and those who are uneducated on the subject. Educate them. Change the conversation around AI from ones of feelings and emotions to the legal consequence and the financial liability to us humans. Because as soon as we start changing that conversation to that, then you'll find where your family is at.
I've got one that came through here from Heinz Schultz that I want to mention quickly. Okay, what about using a vocal sample pack but getting a real human to re-sing it? I think you're in the clear with regards to that as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to remember a vocal sample pack, as it stands, if, for example, on Splice, was the intellectual property most likely of the singer singing it. So the lyric and the top line and the singer, that part belongs to them, and you have a non-exclusive license to sing it. to use it, but you don't have a non-exclusive right to replicate it or cover it. If you do want to cover an existing track, then you have to go through the process of compulsory license in the United States, or what's called a cover license here in Europe, just with the publisher or the writer. So, yeah, you can't step on other people's intellectual property without obtaining a license.
Heinz says, perfect answer. Thank you very much. Nicholas Gunn, thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. I think this has been a very, very eye-opening discussion.
Definitely.
Indeed.
And there's been a lot that I think has, clarified a lot for the people that are in chat.
Yeah.
And the reason why we did this is to create the discussion, because we think that people want to talk about it. And I know there's a lot of people lurking that don't want to weigh in on the conversation because they still feeling to see how it's going to go. So thank you, Nicholas, for actually, standing up for the artists and the producers and the vocalists and the human element that's in the industry.
That makes us love the music that we do. And as Valerie said as well, we did this and we wanted to weigh in on this because we've worked with the likes of Nicholas Gunn, Heinz Schultz, with Zunshine and Illuminate, Claire Willis, Ren Fay. We've worked with absolutely incredible people. And when you see these things going and there's no control, there's no checks and balances, and the transparency is very, very iffy, we thought that we want to be a part of it because, you know what, at the end of the day, it's about artistic integrity.
Yeah, it is. And that's what you just have to check yourself at the gate with. Just where do you come from? If you get satisfaction out of doing the work yourself, then hold true to that pattern and focus on that.
Love it. Nicholas Gunn from Blue Dot, thank you for joining us in this open and frank and very straightforward discussion here on a special edition of Vibes Tonight.
Thanks, guys.
And this is going to be a first of many, because I'm sure that things are going to change, and we should just keep in the conversation and keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And, like Nicholas said, this affects him and his artist and his label, which is why he's made himself look and find the things and the answers to what people have been asking.
Nick, once again, thank you so much, mate. Really, really appreciate it. Be sure to check out Nicholas Gunn, Blue Dot Music, okay? Because I'm sure, Nicholas, as things evolve in terms of AI and so on, you will obviously be posting it onto your pages and so on as well.
Yes, we'll always give updates. We'll always give updates to how the industry is molding and shaping.